reason you have covet is because the covet is used to make sure that the people won't oppose you, because everybody has a negias. Why I want to do this, I want to do that. But if you have a law and order, so there's a tightness. So who's going to follow? Who's going to make rules? Obviously, he made the melech, and the melech has the rules. He has to have the ability to punish. But b'etzem adin, that's not the purpose of the melech. The melech's job is to make sure that the country works. That's the melech's job. And that was why it's called Kainot. And then the Malachim heard this, and they said that we also agree that that's the job of the melech. And therefore, we machni ourselves to that idea, and therefore, because people made it, definitely in the Middle Ages, the Havamina was that I'm a king, all I'm there is, or the what is it called, the natural right, something right of kings, whatever it is, what do you call it? That means I'm entitled because I'm the melech, and I'm entitled to all the covet. So the Indian is covet, not I'm doing you a favor by ruling over you, making sure there's no nothing. But why am I over my job? My job is because it's just the right of the kings. I have a right to do whatever I want. So that's the wrong attitude. The attitude has to be that we're of the people. And that's what we do. Geshon, in the sense, is given over to what once for Talmidim. And Kmat, everyone in the yeshiva was his Talmud. A derech in Teire, derech in Musa, in Ashkofe, in purpose, life, that he gave over. And in that, everybody's masking was a good desach. There's no happening, there isn't any. There's no arguments on that. And therefore, it's a point that we're making is by recommitment to all the things that he taught us, that we commit ourselves to his zikaron. That's the purpose of Torah. It's the purpose of a yeshiva. It's the purpose of Klal Yisrael. And I think that's what he established for us, and I think for his son for sure. I think those Zainam Yotz Hashem, that his zikaron should be Zichay Baruch, should have a lichtige Gan Eden, is the usual lesson.
As the Yeshiva mentioned, the purpose of the Zikaron is to be mechadish in ourselves, to tie together, tie to what we were makabel, what was given over, to reconnect to what my father Zechreinu L'Bracha stood for, what he was mechanech, what he lived himself, but he was the dmus chai of godless. To talk about my father is always very hard. How do you take a picture? Where do you start from to draw a picture, to be able to episode demus, to have a demus diuknei lefanov, the shleimus in every aspect. It's just Zaged of Risa Ramei Machayra, Risa is Ramei Machayra, to see epis a shaykhis to Ramei, to have a shaykhis just by seeing a chayrai, just to lift up the Musagim, the connection with the Friede Kedairis. My father, Zechariah Bracha, was always very busy living, being mamshech, and connecting to how the Anhag of the Friede Kedairis. If we connect back, every Rebbe has their Nukudas. If we could connect and even to see a Vissel Machorai to make it more vivid, those Rishamim that a lot of Achim are learning the Svarim, hearing things over, but to read, to be Machaya, those Rishamim that are there, the special Zman on the yard site, Neshama becomes closer to this world, there's more of a kesher, a chayich to feel a connection, to relive, to be able to see Rabbi Machayre al Koponim. We find that Yaakov had, the name of Yaakov is Akeva, the name of Yisrael is the Lashon of Sar, Sarisa, Imelakim Banoshim Atuchol. The Lashon of Yaakov is V'hoya Be'ekev Tishmo, V'hoya Me'ekev Tishmo. So Rashi brings down that as a mitzvah Sh'odam Dosh Ba'akeva, a person is medaktik in every prat cotton, is the schar that you get the schar is getting for those mitzvahs Sh'odam Dosh Ba'akeva. The Medrash over there starts out that Mao, to go ahead and put the menorah shel prakim, to be builded, to be boina on Shabbos, could be boina menorah shel prakim. You have a menorah that you have to put together piece by piece, could be boina menorah shel prakim. What shaykhs does it have to v'hoya ekev to shmo? The word is that mitzvahs have to be building a person. Different chalakim of tayag mitzvahs are mashlim, different chalakim of a person. My father, Zechron Baruch, used to always say that there are machan shasa, keneged evarim, keneged egidim. As a person is mashlim himself, a person builds himself, a person through each mitzvah is boina and he's building himself, he's mashlim himself. That's like the menorah shel prakim. You're making a new tzura, a new binyan, a naya taking piece by piece is the small zachen, the diktuk in the kleine zachen, those being medaktik and small things together make a davar shalom. The schar mitzvah b'hai alma is when a person is b'shleimus, when he's medaktik in the dvarim ktanim, he's mashlim himself, is then there is the bracha that the Eibishter says, that Abba, that the Eibishter is the bracha that you're going to get an oilam hazeh, besides the schar what's be'ekev, besides the schar that's going to be an oilam haba, besides that schar that's going to be an oilam haba, that's going to be that you're going to get perisei meichlim b'oilam hazeh. The diktuk in every davar cotton, every prat cotton, nothing was small, nothing was too big. Every little thing went with oizgecheshment, bizbaininus, to be mashlam, to do it in the perfect way, and to be mizbainin in everything, how to do it in the right way. That was from these little things, from every prat cotton together, a person Yaakov was able to change himself from the Shem Yaakov to the Shem Yisrael, Kisarisal Makim, Alosh and Sar. He could be Moshel, is because he was medaktik in every davar cotton, in every akev, in every small thing. When you medaktik and mashlim, you get to the level of shleimus. Shleimus is not something that you jump to and you get automatically shleimus. It's being medaktik in the dvarim ktanim. The Indian of Yaakov is Tom, Yosef Holim, and Esav was Ish Sadeh. So Reb Shnei brings down that the Indian of Yosef Holim is Yaakov was, whatever his avodah was focused to build himself, it was focused and concentrated in oil. It wasn't stam doing mitzvahs random. Like Esav was Ish Sadeh, things were bachutz. He did a mitzvah today, another mitzvah tomorrow. He had mitzvahs. But they weren't ma'achid together to become a koyma shleima. It wasn't misachid together to become one big koyma shleima, to become oizbayin the mensch. It was basada. It was outside. There wasn't an internal focus on building a person and building a koyma. Yaakov was focused, concentrated on the binyan, on the pnimius of himself, and building every prat in the mensch. It's kedugmas. The Shiva Zatzal says that the Indian of Yeshli Kol, by Yaakov was called, there was a shleimus. He had what he needed what he had. Everything was a cheshbon. There was a focus of ois nutzen, jede kleinigkeit. He was chayzal pachem ktanim, every little bit, every kleinigkeit had to bring l'dei shleimus. Esav is Rav, there's a gewaldic amount, there's a mass, but it's not being focused into building one unified binyan. Said over many times that my father's a Chayin Bracha brings down the Mesil Sisharim, Yisaida Chasidus, V'Shayrish Avoida Tmima. He says there's a Yisaid and there's a Shayrish, there's a foundation, a person is building, a person has to have a plan. There's an architectural plan of how to build a binyan. What kind of binyan does he want to build? What kind of binyan does he want to build? What's he building? There has to be a klarkeit, a vision to be able to see a vision of what he wants to build. A person has to have a gracekeit in big asagis and sheifas, what he wants to build, and he has to know the fizeh, how to build a foundation that's going to last. My father's a Chayin Bracha used to always mon in the yeshiva. Are we preparing the bachrim for life, for future things in life? Is the Torah built on a strong enough foundation that it's going to be able to hold through all those ruchos rois that come and that try to blow us away from Torah? B'shayrish avoda tmima, the shayrish is where the nutrients, the tree gets nutrient. It has to be a deep shayrish that feeds up chayim to the tree, to all the way up to the top of the tree. There has to be deep roots, tifa shirashim, that's yoinik, that's living, that's shasel beveis Hashem, mechatzis alakeinu yafrichu. There has to be sulam beveis Hashem. It's vayikei shasel al palgei mayim, has to be shasulim. There has to be a place that it's yoinik nuchayim. A person has to keseda, have a nuchiyas. There has to be, you can't build on an old stale foundation. There has to be a shayrish, and he's constantly being yoinik. There's new nutrients, there's new rain. Person has to keseda, be mechadish in his avodas Hashem. Not to be mitzvahs hanoshim ulamada, that my father Zechariah Baruch used to say, mitzvahs hanoshim ulamada is a building on the old year Shemayim, not living the new, not being mechadish, and constantly being yoinik nuchiyas, living in the old year Shemayim, is that a tree could die if it doesn't have new chiyas, new nutrients. In the chinuch, in the yeshiva, was older Rebbeim, but my father used to stress it a lot, of stelling avek, that we should have enough and we should constantly live around the yeshiva. We should encourage people to be connected always to Makom Torah, to always be connected, to be able to constantly have that chiyus. You can't, if a person leaves the yeshiva, you can't expect that what he learned, it could dry out. So brought down from the sefer in the back of the in the Avos Chesed, the Chavetz Chaim brings down from the Baal Maginisa Tova. He says, Liskar b'yoyim ha'moves, k'mosh Amr Chazal, shuv yom echad, you should be shuv yom echad, v'yaseh b'kol yoyim ha'mitzvahs b'tachlos ha'zrizus v'acheshik, ki'ilu ein loy rak yom echad laved es boirei. Person, the Mishnah says, shuv echad, koidem misascha, you should do the mitzvah betachlos hazrizus v'acheshik, that ki'ilu this is the last day, yesh lo yirak yom echad laved es boirei. But he says, v'gam yachshav ki'ilu noilad hayoim v'lo avad adayin es boirei. So a person has to have two opposite extremes. Mitzad echad, he looks at it, that this is his last day, this is my last opportunity. But on the same time, v'gam yachshav ki'ilu noilad hayoim, that's ki'ilu noilad hayoim, it's the first time I ever did it. Asher anochi mitzavcha hayoim, b'chol yoim yug beinecha kechadashim, it shouldn't be keduta yeshana. It shouldn't be like an old duty yeshana. The Sefer from Rav Samsonovich, he brings down, Rav Dessler says that the Indian of Herigel, we say Shetargileinu b'sar, this Rav Hutner brings the Indian of Shetargileinu b'sar yasecha. There's an Indian of Regilus and Torah, it should be Rogel, Harogel Bener, it should be something that it's part of us, it's part of our nature. But at the same time, it has to be b'chol yoyim yibenecha kechadashim. It has to be targilein, something that it's a second nature, we're melumed in Torah, but at the same time, it has to be kesei the chadashis. So he says mitzad echad, there's a murdik kazach of being margal ourselves in things. You margal yourself is something that the person has midas, he's margal himself a midas taivus. It becomes part of him, it's part of his midas. But he says, but something that's morgal by a person, it doesn't make a roshim b'liboy. It doesn't have that koyach to be mechadish and to make a roshim b'liboy. He says, Rav Dessler brings down, he says that if you'd see for the first time that you planted something and it got rotten, the seed got rotten, and all of a sudden it's there for a few months and it starts sprouting out a new thing. So the first time you see it is mamish nespal, the nes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But afterwards, you get used to it. It becomes ragul. You don't see the grace of chiddush. You don't see the grace of chiddush. You don't see al nisecha shebchol yoyim imanu. You don't see that it's a new nes every day. You don't see a new nes every day. So he says, Rav Dessler says, how are you mavatal the pulas hahergel? He says, just by the fact that a person has in his mind and he thinks that, oh, every day there's a new mitzvah, there's a new schachas. He says, how's that going to, the person is used to it. It doesn't feel like there's a new cheshik in it. So he says, the Rav Dessler says, Omnam ne'iyun v'zbainin esheima she'yivatul as pulas hahergel. He says, the iyun and his baininess in something, that's mavatal the pulas hahergel. When you think about it, you're mizbainin, and you absorb it, and you're thinking it over and over, and chewing it over this way, that way. Kol dava sheyayim by adam yimtza by chiddush, ein ba'alocha, ein ba'agoda, ein b'tfila, ein b'kriyas shema. He says, if a person is mizbainin in things, the iyun v'zbaininess, that's mavatal the whole hergel. He says a person has to think the mitzvah and think about the mitzvah, come up with a new havana, come up with a new chiddush. When he's mizbainin in it, a person that's mizbainin in a mitzvah goes through the pratim and the halacha, he goes through the inyanim of the mitzvah by being mizbainin and thinking about it. that opens up in a person an inyan of Chadoshim. So he wants to explain, Rav Samsonovich wants to explain, he says that if a person is just in the dry seichel, if he's just in the seichel in his mind, so Mela, you're going over the same thing. But he says something that's chiyus, something that's chayim, you don't go over. Every minute is a new, you're reliving, you're living a new chayim. This every moment is a new chiyus in the zach. The yesterday's minute is not today's minute. You're living it a new life, a new living. If a person is a dry seichel, just thinking about this, the seichel itself, so then you're repeating, you're going over. But if a person is getting a chiyus in it, thinking about it, opening it up, developing it, getting a chiyus in the zach, is the zelba zach, the chayim a person's living is every time is a new chiyus, a new chayim chadashim. A person relives it, relives that zach. It's a hargoshav, it's a new chayim, it's chayim chadashim. A person could be living shuv echad yom shuv echad l'fnei misascha. A person should live with that l'fnei miyat asad litin din v'cheshbon. But you could have kilu hayoim noilad. It could be my last day, my first day, and it's not a stira to be that ischachus that you have. My father, Zechrein Avracha, was always, the Yom Adin was always in front of him. The Bayitzar Adam b'shnei Yitziros, a person has Yitzir b'olam hazeh and Yitzir l'olam haba. He lived with olam haba, was always very, very vivid. Always preparing himself for it. But at the same time, it's b'chol yom yeh kechadashim. There was always a new machshava, a new ischachas. Being mechadash keseda, thinking and rethinking, going it over again and reliving the zach. There was always a feeling of argosha that it's keduyut chadasha, it's something new. There's a new chiyas in it. There's a new living, reliving it. I said over before that my father, Zechron Vracha, would take off an Elul before Aseret Yimei Tshuva. He would prepare the shmuzin. He would spend hours and hours preparing. And a lot of the Yisaidis were the same Yisaidis that we heard before at other times. The preparation wasn't preparing the das, just the machshava shabai, but the reliving, the chiyas and the davar, to relive it, to be chayim, to relive it. That chiyas is to give over the Talmidim something that's alive, something that he was living in Avodah, that gave over to Dvarim Hayotzim and Alev, that went into the Lev. It was something that was chai by him. Single man told me over, and it's you know, the person Ingaman was going through was very close to my father, and he was going through a certain hardship. And he had a dream that he was Mekorev, he used to come to my father a lot in the house. I had a dream, I saw my father sitting by the dining room table where he used to sit and used to be learning. And in the dream, he said that he knew that my father was already nifta. He wasn't. My father was learning, and then he noticed him in the room, and he told him he's busy preparing. He doesn't have time. He can't talk to him. He can't. He's busy. So he told him, "I know what you're going through, and the person grows from the nisyanis. You're having your nisyanis. A person has a chiyas from, he grows from the nisyanis, and it'll be good. You'll strike from it." So he said, I mean, this is a dream, I don't know, but I don't know if it was, Just this is what a Talmud was dreaming about. That's when he pictured my father. Where there was, my father did come. He didn't come to Micholim, but so he told him. He says, I was always worried what's going to be with my chelik and olam haba, and Baruch Hashem, it worked out. That was the dmus that was given over, that the Talmud felt that was on the mind always. Was vet zayin, living a life of what are you going to answer in olam haba? What's going to be a chelik in olam haba? Living with the shtei yitziros. There was constantly, he had lefonov the vision of what am I going to answer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What am I going to answer? Did I do my shlichus in this world? My father, Zechrein Avracha, was very busy with the inyanim of the Holocaust, Tzadik V'Raloi, the Indian of understanding, the Shverim Musagim. He saw himself a shlichus. He saw that he was saved from the war. He saw himself that was his matara, to be able to give over Clarkite in the inyanim of Nisyanis. His young years, his childhood years, went through the Muhammad. He saw in front of him that life is constantly a Muhammad. There's constant, a person has to grow. There's constantly, a person has to be mechadish himself, has to be steiging. He can never be dormant. He has to kaseda, wax and wax. The sheifis of Arichaim L'mayla L'maskil L'mansul Mishal Mota, to be always L'mayla L'maskil, to always go up, more further up. And Kaseda find Nuei Chetimtzis, to find Nuei Chetimtzis of how to be able to be Mechayiv himself, Nuis Chayvasin. As being a menal in the yeshiva, being a magachir, the shmuzin, there was enough to feel that he did. But besides that, he started a camp in the summer. He felt in the summer, he felt that there's a need for it, for Torah Dekamokim. Constantly putting himself, being mechayiv himself. There was a matzav, my mother was very sick. So he made then, he was mechayiv himself, then to ride on Shimshon. He felt an achrayis that people shouldn't be misguided, people's vision of what Shimshon, what he was, the Shofet Yisrael, Ruach HaKodesh, Bal Ruach HaKodesh. He felt important with David HaMelech to be Masber, to be able to write Svarim, in Ashkafa. He had enough to be satisfied with what he does in yeshiva, but he felt he was always being mechayiv himself more and more to put himself into zachen, that to accomplish more and more. He felt that shlichus from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Eibishter has to answer the Eibishter. There's a shlichus that he's answering. What did you? I sent you here. I saved you. He was nitzel b'nisim. What are you doing? What's your shlichus in this world? There's a tkufa he used to have. There was a night koil. He was part of a night koil. So I spoke to an 8th grade Rebbe. He told me he was part of that night koil years ago. Rabbi Tumim. He gave chaburis and brachas. He gave chaburis in different mesechtes. They learned it was extra mechayiv. He was saying shir, and he always undertook new mechayivim. Even when he was very shvach, he felt he couldn't give up saying shir. He said that if I give up saying shir, I'm not going to have that mechayiv to be ligging and learning as much. He says, if I'm not ligging and learning, I can't say a shmuz. If a person is not shakua in Torah, is not living the chiyas of Torah, you can't give over a shmuz. To Stam, he always felt that only if you're shakua in a sugi, he says, when he's not saying shir, the shmuzin aren't the same. If there's more time to prepare, there's more time but a person's ligging in Torah, ligging almost al Torah, that is meraymim a person that when he says the shmuz, he's living the zachen achai by him, and vibalt that the chai is able to give over that chayim to other people. Other people are able to be yonik from that chayim. The feeling of achrayis, felt an achrayis, a building Torah, migmarbitz Torah. You see by Yehuda, it says, Anochi Ervenu, miyadi tavakshenu. When Reuven came and Reuven said that I'll have my shnei bonai Thomas, Chazal say that Yaakov Avinu said, B'chor shaita. It's your children, it's my children also. But when Yehuda took on the arvus of Anochi Ervenu, miyadi tavakshenu, is that Yaakov was maskim. What's the difference of Shnei Banai Thomas or if a person himself, Yehuda was going ahead and giving up his Olam Haba for this? So why didn't Yaakov say, well, you're my child also? You're my child, whatever, what's episode, I want you that you should be. So you see, by Reuven was a zach that Kilu, it was a guarantee. It was guaranteeing that he's going to be afraid of losing his children. So that's going to give him the kaiches to go ahead and fight for Binyamin. But Yehuda was makasher himself. Yehuda tied himself up with Binyamin, that if Binyamin is going to be missing, I'm going to be missing. V'chatasi, there's going to be a chait, there's going to be chesaron in myself. Coming down in the Kol Ram from the Reshivas Zatzal, that hargasha of tying yourself up, that you're going to be missing, if Binyamin is not going to be here, you're going to have a chasar. It's not stam a zaitige guarantee from the outside. It's meneu bay. It's going to be chasar from you yourself. That's going to give Yehuda the kaiches to go ahead and fight for his life. That's going to be that arvus that a person takes on. So Chaim Shmulevitz says that's the Indian of Yehuda was malchus of taking on arvus. To take on, to be an Arev, that, as Rishiva Shlita is saying, the Indian of Malchus, it's not an Indian of getting covered, it's not an Indian of taking. Malchus is giving, tying yourself to the Am, feeling the achrayas for the Tzveita, being the lave of the Am, libay leva Am, that Malchus of being meshabed yourself and feeling the responsibility of other people, that Malchus is able to go ahead and was able to guarantee that he'll be able to bring Binyamin. So they bring over there that Reshivas Zatzal said that a person has to feel that arvus, that Klal Yisrael without Talmidei Chachamim, Klal Yisrael without Gedolei Torah, Klal Yisrael without Gedolei Maisa is missing. I'm missing. And that feeling of a person to undertake, that arvus, is going to be able to be a person in himself to undertake greater things than he thinks he could handle. Person has to feel an achrayus for Klal Yisrael. There's an achrayus for Torah. There's achrayus for Klal Yisrael. That argosha of malchus, a feeling achrayus for Tzveita, achrayus for the tzibur, a person could push himself and find kaiches within himself, that without that arvus he wouldn't have had. Person, that connection, the feeling of the undertaking, fayena. You see, by the Malchus of Beis Chashmonai, so the Gemara brings down, Ukshagavra Malchus Beis Chashmonai. So it's a pella. What's it? Malchus Beis Chashmonai. They weren't Malachim yet. They were, when they fought the Yevonim, they had no shaykhs to being Malchus. What is this Indian of Malchus Beis Chashmonai? The Malchus Beis Chashmonai is, you see, that undertaking, that hargasha of responsibility for Klal Yisrael, for the Beis Hamikdash, for the Avodah, that koiches is builds in a person that's a koich of Malchus. That taking achrayus, that arvus for Klal Yisrael, that is the koich of, that they were already called Malchus Beis Chashmonai. Feeling that responsibility for Klal Yisrael, that being mis'ala and feeling the achrayus for the tzibur, that itself is a darg of Malchus. Rav Tzadok says an interesting thing, that you see the Ramban says that Beis Chashmonai says Kol Mishama Beis Chashmonai is an Eved. It's such a, the Eibishter gave such a einish to Beis Chashmonai. There was such an einish from Beis Chashmonai that they were considered, that it was mamish wiped out, and the only ones that were left were Avodim. So he says that they went Keneged, what Yaakov Avinu said, Le'yasa Shevet mi Yehuda, they took away the Malchus of Yehuda. The Malchus was supposed to be Malchus by Yehuda, and they took over the Malchus. You see in the Gemara calls it Malchus Beis Chashmonai, mashma, that there was a Malchus over here, there was an emes of Malchus here. So Tzadok says that there's man Malchi Rabbanon, there's Malchus that comes Mikoyach HaTorah. Man Malchi Rabbanon, if you're being Moilech Mikoyach the Torah, Talmidei Chachamim have the darga of a Melech, have the darga of Srara, the Kesed Torah is Malchus. His Beis Chashmonai was Shevet Levi, was Kisib Sekoy Nishmeru Das, V'Torah Mivakshu Mipiu, was the Malchus of Torah. So Kol Zman, they were Gedolei Torah, Kol Zman, they kept the Torah, they kept Torah Shabbal Peh. So then they didn't have the Einish, that they were being Meilech Mikoyach, the Malchus of Torah. But once they fell from the Madrega, and there was a Shaykhas to Tzdukim, they were Koyfer in Torah Shabbal Peh, but Yanai, that said, that killed out the Chachmei Yisrael. So once they went down from the Darg of Torah Shabbal Peh, once they went down from the Darg of Torah Shabbal Peh, so then the Malchus was a stira, that was a Malchus of Yehuda. There was married by Malchus. There was a Merida by Malchus. See at the beginning, Vahiga Sheil of Yehuda, the Medrash says, "Ine Malachim ne'adu over Yachtav, a Miro came to Tomo." It says the Shvatim said, "They have stay Malachim medainim zeh zeh, anu ma'ich baslanu." You have two Malachim that are medainim zeh zeh. He said over from the Shlah that the Shlah says that there was over here, there was a machoikus between Malchus of Yosef and Malchus of Yehuda. The Shvatim held that Yosef was married by Malchus, Yehuda was the Melech, and Bemesin, there's two, there's Aser Shvatim, there's the Eitz Yosef and the Eitz Ephraim that come together, V'hoyel achadim b'yadecha. It becomes one, the two Malchus in Klal Yisrael. There's a Malchus of Mashiach ben Yosef, and there's a Mashiach ben David. That is, Mashiach ben Yosef paves the way for Mashiach ben David. That was the Indian of Yosef went down to Mitzrayim. That Yosef went down to Mitzrayim to pave the way that Klal Yisrael could be Oymid B'Tzitkam, be able to be in the Memtes Shari Tumah, to be in Zirma Susam Zirmasam, and to be able to withstand the Kaichas of Nisyanis. Yosef was zeicha to Malchus. As Chazal say, midilei lokach. It says, Vahi miketz nesayim yomim upari choylem. It says, Kate sam lachoshech. The Eibishter put, Vahi miketz nesayim yomim, is the Eibishter was the end of 2 years. So it says, Kate sam lachoshech. There was 2 years that the Eibishter put an end to that choshech. And then Pari had the dream. So the shaila is that Yosef was in jail for 10 years before that. Why is it only Miketz Nasayim Yomim that these 2 years was Kate Sam Lachoshech? So the teretz is that you see by Yosef, the Kayach of, that even he was in the Beis HaSoyar, in every matzav, Yosef was misgadol to be the Kayach of Malchus. He became the Sar in Beis Potifar. Then in the Beis HaSoyar, he became a Sar over there. The Medrash says that when Pari put the Revid Hazav al Yodos, it says, Yosef midilei lokach. Yodos shaloi noga ba'aveira is he put the Revid Hazav, it says Tzavar, it says Piv, shaloi noshak ba'aveira. It goes through every aver that Yosef was built himself Malchus. The Malchus a person has is when he's Moilech al Atzmai, when a person is a Melech on himself, Mikayach that he's living with the Seichel, with the Machshava. When a person is Moilech al Atzmai and he's living with the Seichel, when Eishes Potifar came and she wanted to do a chet, so he tells her a logical thing. How could I do such a thing? The Chatasi that he gave over, it's such a disloyalty. She gave that the Potifar gave over everything to me, and I should be boiged in him. And then as v'chatasi lelikim, Yosef was living with the Seichel the whole time, was living with the Kayach of Seichel, was the Kayach of Shlita of the Seichel over the Kayachas Agufniim, the Kayachas Taiva, the Kayachas of the Ritzonis. And because of that, those 10 years that he was building Malchus, that he was preparing himself to be a Melech on Gans Mitzrayim, that he was preparing himself, that wasn't called Choshech. Only the last 2 years that he said Zachas Zachatani, that there was a Chesaron and B'tachan, so there was a matzav of Choshech. Since he went away, there was a nidnud of lack of bitachon, was too much ishtadlus of madrega of Yosef. So that was Choshech. He went away from the Ashgachas Hashem. He went and was panel Rehavim b'shatei chazav. If a person turns not to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Yosef was living with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was Or, Ke'eshev HaChoshech Hashem Orli, was living with the Or of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My father, Zechrein Avracha, going through his Golus and going through his Matzavim, he lived with that a person steigs from Matzavim of being in Choshech, and a person within that Choshech, he could be Makeh, the Or of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the only way that a person steigs and constantly living within the Nisyonis and steiging more and more, going higher and higher within the Nisyonis. The Medrash says that he was Rod the most Duknish Alaviv. It says that he saw B'chaloin. One of the things that Chazal say that Yosef said that one day the Kohen Gadol is going to carry the Avonim of all the Shvatim, and if he does the Chet, he's not going to have the Evan on not his Shevet is not going to have an Evan. The way that a person is able to go ahead and fight off the Koyach of Olam Hazeh is by feeling that Reimemus, that feeling that future, that what is in store for him, what is he oimid to do, to be Meraimim and Megadol himself, and say, I can't do such a thing. If I do such a thing, I lost all my Gadlus. Person living with the Reimemus and the Gadlus of what it's Elam Elikim. My father in the kunches of Adam Vavedasai, he goes through unbelievable, from Maral, the Ramchal, the Nefesh HaChaim, of understanding the madreg of a person's neshama is higher than a malach. Person has a koyach of chavivus, of chav Adam, the Maral says that it's more than malachim. A person has the darg of being able to be higher than a malach. The chavivus of to be able to know a person to live with lifting up his asagis of where he can reach, what's expected from him, what does the Eibishter want. And if a person lives with those big asagis, with the focus of what is the binyan, what is the yisaid, what kind of building could I build, what kind of shirashim do I need to hold up this fortress, a person has kaiches to be able to overcome this yainus. It says by Matan Torah, it says that the Eibishter was megala bavur naseis eschem elikim ubavur tiras tia yirase al paneichem levilti sechatou. Lavur naseis, as Rashi says, leroimim ulegadol. The Eibishter was megala to us to be meroimim Klal Yisrael, to show the roimimus and the gadlus that Klal Yisrael could reach. Ulebavur tia yirase al paneichem levilti sechatou. To be able to have yirase al paneichem levilti sechatou, that is yiras achet of yirase al paneichem, that's boishes panim. The Eibishter lifts us up to that godless of showing us that we're mamlechas kainim b'goy kadosh, showing us the dargis that we could reach, that the whole bria is mitla tali in our Torah, the whole asidus, the whole future of the world is tali in our mitzvahs. But at the same time, the Eibishter was megala to us, the atar reisel adas kashem ulakim. The Eibishter was megala that I'm the one that's lifting you up. It's not that you stam have that gedula. Levavur yitiya yirase al paneichem levilti sechatou tavoishes panim. Klal Yisrael's man malchi rabbanon. We have a koyach of malchus. We have a koyach of gadlus. But as Chazal say that ahafti eschem, that the Eibishter gave gedula to Avram, and he says v'noichi ofa ve'efer. When we get gedula, we're makir where the keser is coming from. We're makir where our malchus is coming from. The malchus is a malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The koyach of an Adam is a melech, but it's malchus mikoyach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Father brings down, it says that when Adam was created, the Malach HaSharis wanted to be mishtachah, the Malach HaSharis wanted to say Shira. He was created b'tzelem elikim. They was doimet to the Bayrei. There was such a demos dimyan to the Bayrei. Till Adam Arishan says, "Bo to them, and we're going to go mishabeach HaKadosh Baruch Hu." The Indian of the Malchus of Yehuda is apam oides Hashem. Leah was tavsa placha vayda. Yehuda was tzadka mimenu was had the placha vayda of tzadka mimeni. Malchus and Klal Yisrael is the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Malchus of Torah, the Malchus of Yehuda, the Malchus of Yosef. It's all the Hakara that the Eibishter is Meroimim and Megadalos. And at the same time, we could have Malchus, we could have Yirase al Paneichem Zuboishes Panim. The Malchus Beis Chashmonai was a Malchus of Azus. Was a Malchus B'loitaga. They took the Malchus for themselves. It wasn't a Malchus that they were representing, the Malchus Shamayim. So that was a Malchus of Azus. Klal Yisrael is Azim Shavu'umois. But Klal Yisrael understands that the Torah is the Eibishter's Oiz. Hashem Oiz Le'amayitein. Teferes Uzamai, the Eibishter's Oiz is the Eibishter's Oiz, and we realize that our godless that we have is a godless coming directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At the same time, a person has to constantly feel there's such a mission. I'm have to do so much. There's so much responsibility. My father Zechariah Baruch used to say the importance of learning the Nefesh HaChaims, to learning the Ramchals. The person understanding the koyach of his maisa, what it's pile, understanding the koyachis of what he is expected, what each mitzvah that he does, b'shleimusai, how much tikkun and ilui does it have in the world? What does the Eibush expect from him? When a person comes with that feeling of godless, of what his maisa means, there's constantly a schachas, there's constantly a motivation, there's constantly a feeling of chiyus, of going weiter and weiter. My father Zechariah Baruch always felt more and more pushing himself, pushing and pushing and pushing every minute of the day, weiter to accomplish, to steig. It comes from a meridik akara of what a person could do, what he's expected. But at the same time, there was a meridik achna and shiflus, the yira, the boishes panim, not taking credit for himself, the realizing that it's a matnas alikim, whatever he has, that he's able to do avodas Hashem. The Kunchas over he talks about the Indian by Bikish Yaakov Leishav V'Shalva. There was a taina on Yaakov that was mevakish Leishav V'Shalva. So he quotes over here from Rabbi Yerucham that the whole mitzias of a godless of Adam over the malachim is the fact that he's a beicher, he has bechira. The fact that he has the kayach of bechira. Says Yaakov was Bikish Leishav V'Shalva, was the madrega. He felt that after he finished with Esav, he finished with the Raf mi bachutz. It's like Ilu Vaivasa Yaakov Levadai. Yaakov was Levadai. The Medrash says that just like the Eibishter was V'nizgav Hashem Levadai, so Yaakov had that darg of Lasid Lavai of Levadai. The end of Madrega of Levadai is he thought that he was already finished with the Kayach Hara. But his Kovtzel Rugzeh Shal Yosef, there's the Rad, there's Minei Ubei, there's the Rabbi Bachutz, but there isn't the Mitzad, the children, Mitzad Shiftei Kod, that there should be an Achtas together, there should be an Ichud between the Shvatim. There was the Rugzeh Shal Yosef, but the Mevakish Leishav V'Shalva is a person, the feeling that the Nisyonis of a person to feel Geshmak, I'm an Adam, I'm a person, I'm alive. Have someplace that David is giving me the darga more than a malach. If a person is already finished with his avodah, so with what is he greater than a malach? He doesn't have the kayach ha-bechira. If a person takes every matzav of Nisayin and he feels that it's an oifen that he could steig, and he becomes more of a Baal Bechira, and he becomes more of an Adam, and he's able to reach higher dargas than a Malach, and he's makir the godless of his Maisa, then a person is a new Chiddush, a new Ratzon, a new Cheshik in everything that he does. We should take a little the demus of what avodas Hashem b'chol in every moment, in every minute, to chaparayin, the godless of a maisa, the godless of a moment. Every minute is a new opportunity. That minute is going to be gone. To feel that, and to be a gavaldik simcha, when a person has it, it feels an ashiris. Every minute, look how much I'm accomplishing. When a person lives with a gavaldik vision of what he's building himself an olam hanetzach. He's building himself a ganze olam haba. Person lives with that, so that gives a person a koyach to constantly to be arichaim l'maylu l'maskil. We should take from it, and we should live with these zechroinis, constantly mechazik in learning the shmuzin, to learn big vetzay, to learn things that are printed, to constantly live with that demus. He's Zichrei Baruch.